Hello and welcome to the Celtic Huddle podcast. I'm Mark Wilson. Today I'm joined by the Celtic legend JOHAN MJALLBY. JOHAN won 3 titles as a player under Martin O'Neill and 3 titles as assistant manager to Neil Lennon. Also joining us today will be John McGarry from the Scottish Daily Mail. He's been close to all the major stories at Parkhead this season. So on today's podcast we'll discuss if Eddie Howe is a done deal or is there trouble on the horizon as he's on Crystal Palace's shortlist to replace Roy Hodgson. It's just been announced also that Dom Mackay will leave his job at the SRU 10 weeks early to start at Celtic Park on April the 19th. Is that a good thing? And we'll get all the in-depth chat with JOHAN and what happened to Neil Lennon at Celtic and what happens next for his close friends. So stay with us for the next 45 minutes. Also get your comments and questions and we want to hear from you, the Celtic fans, and we'll read out as many as we can and put them to JOHAN and John. Also, we're on Instagram, the Celtic Huddle podcast, and on Twitter at Huddle Celtic. So get your comments in there. And I'm delighted to say once again the podcast is sponsored by First Star Legends Gin, First Class Transfers and Social Recluse. We thank them all for their support. So let's get to it. No time to waste. Let's bring in our guests, JOHAN MJALLBY and John McGarry. JOHAN, how you doing, big man?
I'm very well, thank you. It's great.
Yeah, and yourself, John?
Yes, good to see you guys.
Oh, good. I've got to say, John, nothing against you, but JOHAN looking a bit better than yourself. Lockdown being a bit kinder to him than us, I'm afraid. But good to see you, John. Right into it right away. Some news about Dom Mackay, but we'll start on the latest situation with Eddie Howe. Now, last week on the Huddle podcast, we did say that an announcement was probably 48 hours away. It's picked up momentum. What is the situation that you're understanding in Eddie Howe at the minute?
I don't think there's any cause for alarm from the point of view of Celtic supporters. I don't think Eddie Howe is going to... I think there has been an agreement made in principle, albeit nobody has put their pen to paper on anything yet. It's fundamental. It's just an awful lot to discuss here of what happens next. Which job, the responsibilities. I'm not hugely surprised that the negotiations have taken this length of time, given the kind of summer of transition that Eddie Howe is going to be sort of walking in. I know people have been talking about the Crystal Palace vacancy. There's no question that Eddie Howe is a manager that Crystal Palace are very interested in. And it now looks almost certain that Roy Hodgson is going to be in the summer, but it looks like Celtic have kind of won the kind of the battle of hearts and minds here, and I think Palace will. I think Sean Dyche and Steve Cooper of Swansea seem to be in the middle. We'll have to look at one of those two now. So yeah, it's down to the minor details, and I would expect there'll be some confirmation at some point this week.
Yeah, well, that would be good news. I take it for the majority of Celtic fans would like to see him in place. The situation under that is quite an interesting one as well, or above it, whichever way you want to look at in terms of positions. Now, Dom Mackay will come on to later. But with Richard Hughes, we're hearing a lot about Richard Hughes just now. Fergal Harkin has also, we believe, been spoken to by Celtic. So what happens there? Eddie Howe apparently wants Richard Hughes alongside him, but if Celtic went out and tried to put that position to bed before even Eddie Howe's got there, it's quite a confusing situation, is it not? Or is there room for both of them, do you think, John?
No, I don't think there's room for both of them. I mean, Richard Hughes is the current technical director at Bournemouth. Celtic have been looking towards a model where you have a manager working alongside all type figure. If Richard Hughes was to come in, he will fill that role. There wouldn't be room for two. It comes down to, I think, what Celtic envisaged to be the director of football. What Richard Hughes would probably become. I think there might be that might be what's holding up a lot of the discussions at the moment. there is no definitive answer on what is a director of football or a technical director. You can kind of splice and dice these jobs as you want, but clearly it's very important to get it defined as to whether you are effectively above the manager or whether you are working alongside him, and what your relationship with the board is, so club to club. And it's obviously important that Celtic define that at the moment. There's also the small matter that Richard Hughes is under contract at Bournemouth, unlike Eddie Howe, he is still there. So, there'll be compensation due in that regard. The situation, and I think that although Fergal Parkin has got a lot to offer, I think Eddie Howe seems to be happy to have John Kennedy, Gavin Strachan, and Steve McManus involved. But I think he does want to use in as somebody that he knows and can depend upon.
Yeah. I mean, it just strikes me as the plan is a wee bit untidy at the minute, where it's going from place to place with no real certainty of what's happening. If it is the case of spoke to Fergal Harkin, I can't believe that they've went and spoke to Eddie Howe and now he's saying, no, I want this guy's director of football, and it all seems to be a bit contradictory sometimes. But Johan, let's bring in Johan. Johan, what do you think of Eddie Howe? I mean, his stock is high now. We know he left Bournemouth, of course, where they were in the league, but you're talking about 18 months ago. Harry Redknapp saying in the papers today he was linked with Arsenal, he was linked with England, so his stock is high in England. Good appointment for you?
Yes, it is. Definitely in the way he wants to play his football, or the way he played his football with Bournemouth. I remember when I was assistant manager at Bolton with Neil, alongside Neil, and that season Bournemouth, they were just running away with it, in the championship, and they were, extremely good, and effective in the way they play football, and very attractive way of playing football, So I think it's a really, really good manager to get. He's got a good CV, like I said. He's done well with Bournemouth in the Premiership, but it's a big difference being the manager of Celtic than Bournemouth. It's no disrespect to Bournemouth, but Celtic, you need to hit the ground running straight away. He need to get used to winning every single game, not winning every third or second game that was a success at Bournemouth, And obviously I know he knows about this, but I think as a manager and the way he wants to play his football, I think it's a good coup for Celtic.
Yeah, I mean, a few comments coming in for you here, big man down the side. Gaz Smith saying Big Johan looks like he could still play in that team today. Imagine him and Big Ayer. If I caught Johan in bed with my wife, I'd tuck him in. So a few comments for you. But look, quite interesting what you said there about you coming up against him. I'd completely forgotten all about that. You must have first-hand experience of been pitted against one of his sides. You touched on it there, attractive football. What makes it so attractive, the way he plays? I read Harry Redknapp again saying today he likes to play with wingers and quite expansive. Is that what you thought coming up against him?
Yes, definitely. Obviously, during that season, they want to go on the attack all the time. They had the right players. You need to have the right players, and they had really, really good players that season in the Championship. But even if you look at what he's done in the Premiership, he's done a really, really good job. And they haven't really strayed away from, even if they were always most seasons in the bottom. They always try to play. Really, a possession football, and they try to attack, even if they maybe not had the players in the Premiership to be successful.
Yeah, well, just Brian Murphy, a quote here: "No way Kennedy or Strachan should be near new setup. Fresh start across the board. Hail, Johan." A lot of people are thinking that, Johan. John touched on that. John Kennedy and Gavin Strachan, Steve McManus might still be part of it. What do you reckon in that situation? Should Eddie Howe be allowed to bring in his new staff? How important is that you have your right men beside you in the dugout?
No, most definitely. I personally, I'm a fan of that. You as the manager always bring in your own staff to a certain degree. Obviously, it depends on contracts and money wise and all that. But I think it's important especially for him, and for the club and Celtic to show their belief in him, to let him obviously be able to bring in his own staff, but obviously John has already mentioned that they are in talks with Richard Hughes and technical director, and maybe then he only needs to bring in one assistant manager, or some manager they prefer to bring in their own physio or fitness person, but it's important that the club let him bring in his own people, because like we all mentioned, the club is in a bit of transition now, but there's no way as a supporter we're going to give them time to have a 1 or 2 year plan. They need to be able to compete next season straight away.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, realistically, I know it's a big overhaul. Belief in that they can win the title, is it possible? Is it as important next year as any year? A new manager coming in, it may take a bit of time, but you quite rightly point out, you very rarely get that in Glasgow, do you?
No, and you shouldn't, because this is Celtic Football Club we're talking about. It's a club with this great history and used to winning titles all the time. So yes, I certainly think if they get the right people in, if they recruit in a good way, then I think they have a chance to compete and win the title. But this is going to be the first season, in many years that they won't be the favourites.
Yeah, quite right. Jamie Henry here. It's crazy some pundits down south claim Crystal Palace are a bigger success if he got them to 6th and Celtic qualifying for the Champions League. Angers me hearing being compared to a nobody team. Well, that's the point. I think these pundits down south say that to anger people like Jamie. I don't actually believe that they can believe a club like Celtic, or you should knock that back for a Crystal Palace. But look, say the worst does happen, Johan. The Eddie Howe says no. I mean, where did it go from there? Is there a plan B? Or so I'll put that to John actually. John, is there a plan B if Eddie Howe says no and goes to Crystal Palace?
It's an interesting point, Mark. And one thing you would say at the moment, given the fact that I accepted that there is a broad agreement between Eddie Howe and Celtic, he's in a tremendous bargaining position at the moment, because Celtic have to kind of deliver him now, because this appointment has gone down well, or the imminent appointment. There was a lot of other names linked with the post. And you can be certain that Celtic will have been looking at the response to the various names on social media to make sure that whoever they do appoint, as things stand, then Eddie Howe has got Celtic in a very good position. I'm not just talking about in terms of his salary and his personal terms and whatnot, but he's kind of holding the whip hand here in these negotiations, and if he asks for guarantees over certain transfer funds or whatever it may be, it's going to be pretty hard for them to turn around and say no at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, DMAC here says that Celtic received £9 million when Rodgers left for Leicester, so this money should be used for Howe's own backroom team. I do think that is an important thing to get his own backroom team round about him. It's also became important, or a discussion, should I say, if he comes just now or in the summer. Johan, do you see the importance of him coming now rather than the summer? I mean, there's the game against Rangers in the Scottish Cup a couple of weeks' time. You've also got another game at Ibrox against him in the league. It would give him time to assess his squad rather than coming in the summer. So can you understand why it may, or what's the thinking behind that will let him come in the summer rather than now?
No, I think the way I see it, the dream scenario would be that he comes in straight away. Because that, like you say, gives him time to see the squad in action, and obviously make his own mind up, where he needs to recruit, what positions and so on. But But usually, it's usually he will come in the summer. That's probably why I think. I hope it's a close deal anyway. But John knows better than me. But the dream scenario would be for him to come in straight away, and that will give him a good chance and to assess the squad, and see where he really need to go in, position wise.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the sooner he's in, the better. You get a good look at a couple of games against Rangers. You get a good look at your squad. You can assess who you want to keep, who do you think will be part of it. And I think even for guys like Christie and Edward and Ayer, people who are on the brink of possibly leaving, you can try and persuade them, try and get them to buy into what you think is going to happen in the next couple of years. Sell them the dream that Brendan Rodgers kind of did with the way they played and things, and you've got a realistic chance of keeping those guys. But listen, we'll wait and see. It's an interesting development as usual, and things keep changing. But maybe this time next week when we do the podcast, he may be in place. Okay, on to Dom Mackay. John, some good news this morning. Dom Mackay, he's coming. He's leaving the SRU 2.5 months early, and he's expected to be in the door at Celtic first day on the 19th of April. I mean, how significant is that to get him in the building 2.5 months early?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm surprised it's not happened sooner. I mean, these guys at that level invariably have huge notice periods, but they have them. I just think given the sort of the summer that Celtic are going to have to deliver on here, they are, they could have done with them in before now. To be perfectly honest with you, it's worth no start the job as chief executive until July the 1st. He's working for Celtic, but Peter Lawwell's still a chief executive until that point. So there's obviously going to be a period of time where they're going to be both working very closely together. I don't think there'll be any. He does start the job primarily for that reason, because Peter is still the chief executive of the club. But still, it'll still be seen effectively as a start of his regime, if you like. And it's important that the early are strong. If Eddie Howe isn't in the building already by that point, or hasn't been announced by that point, then that would be a good starting point. Season ticket renewals, we keep coming back to that. They are kind of you would want to try to push them on the back of some positive news, rather than at the moment where there's just great uncertainty. But yeah, listen, the fact he's there and he's going to be no longer stationed at Murrayfield, a good thing. Yeah, I mean, I scratch my head and I'm thinking, what is there to do in Scottish rugby at the minute? It's all pretty quiet, and why has he not been in sooner? So I'm not surprised it's happening. I mean, Stephen McKeown here, a point that you were just making there, John, the manager will have to come soon, as it's now time for season tickets renewal, and after last season, it's the only thing Celtic can build their campaign around. But maybe as the first steps, Dom Mackay in the door, positive news, maybe that will be followed with the announcement of the manager, followed quite shortly after that with season ticket renewals. But Johan, you expect Dom Mackay to be his own man and operate in different ways to Peter Lawwell? We all know the way Peter operated, you more than most, of course, but you expect a different character, or will he rule with that kind of, not iron fist that Peter did, but Peter oversaw everything? Is Dom Mackay going to be a different character?
That's a bit impossible for me to say. I don't know Dom. I don't know the way he works. I do think he will be his own man, because why else taking the job? Then obviously he has set his sights to be successful and make sure that Celtic will, continue to be a powerful force, in Scotland and hopefully in Europe as well. No, I'm definitely sure, he will need, some time in order to get used to his surroundings. He will work alongside Peter, for some time and learn the first few things. And then after that, we will see probably see the true Dom, and the character and how he will put his stamp on on Celtic. But we have to remember, though, Peter has been extremely successful in his job, and that should never be forgotten. He's been.
What was it like, Johan? What was it like, Peter, to work under? And getting deals done and things like that. Was he quite an easy chief exec to work under, or or could it be difficult at times?
No, I actually found him quite easy. I've never ever had a problem with him personally. But definitely, when I was in management, assistant manager, obviously you want to bring in as good players as possible, but sometimes it wasn't, possible, because maybe financially or something else didn't really work out. But you have to remember, though, that Peter, it's first and foremost, Celtic was his prior that that financially the club should always be sound, and I think we should applaud that, especially the years when Rangers disappeared and Celtic could see straight away that it would lose some money without any Old Firm games, for some years, and you knew that you would lose some money, and I think he was quite clever in that sense, even if it was frustrating for us building a really, really good Celtic team. So you have to accept that.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see how he goes, because it's a hard act to follow. Peter Lawwell has got his detractors, but you're right, Johan. He financially put Celtic in sound footing. Edward Lantier, Champions League qualification is key this season if we are to have any chance of the league. Need Don Mackay and Eddie Howe fully on board now. I think a lot of people are thinking the same thing. It's almost there. Just get it done and over the line. John, they always say that the first 100 days are vital for an executive appointment. What key things do you think Dom will have to achieve to get ticked off in his list right away?
You said there about the season tickets. I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's just colossal revenue for the club.
Is that, sorry, John, is that his job though right now? Because you said he's not going to be chief exec right away. He's working under Peter Lawwell. So can he be tagged with that responsibility?
I would imagine that all responsibilities would effectively be kind of shared between now and July the 1st. And that is, well, obviously in conjunction with your marketing people and all the rest of it. That's absolutely spot on. The timing of it is essential. So yeah, I mean, I don't think we'll hear or see nearly as much from Don Mackay as we did from Peter Lawwell. I think it will be a far quieter behind the scenes. I think he'll work away on things. I don't think he'll be prone to big kind of public pronouncements, and I think he's a very capable man, but he's not at a hill at the SRU. He's worked his way up from the kind of communication side of things to get where he is. But no, I don't think this is a kind of a like for like change. I think there'll be there'll be a lot of things that Dom will do, and it's going to be a learning process for him as well. I mean, going from, he may be, and as a Celtic fan, but going from the SRU to Celtic is just, there's just no comparison. I mean, if you don't have fans outside a stadium demonstrating, it's not, there is just no comparison in terms of the cultures of the sports. They're fairly distinct. So, he's got a lot of learning to do, and I think for that reason, he'll probably want most of that learning away from the public glare. So there might be a kind of an introductory kind of media thing, but he would do the odd kind of briefing with the rugby guys. But I don't think, I think once things are kind of operating, I think we'll only really hear from Dom sitting down again.
Yeah, well, it's going to be an eye-opener for him, especially if it doesn't go well. But Celtic are going to have a lot of that this year, guys who are learning on the job and have to learn quickly from the top, from Don Mackay to if it's Eddie Howe to a director of football to potentially a new captain. And we put that out in the poll earlier on. Who should be Celtic's new captain? It was Chris Ayer, Cal McGregor. I think Cal McGregor was winning. Alan Robertson here makes a a quote here: "Sell Cal McGregor to finance some of the rebuild." Now, I wonder what Celtic fans would think of that. But I mean, Don Mackay, John, these may be things he has to deal with right away, and have a decision with Peter Lowell. Should they be selling players like Cal McGregor, Ryan Christie moving on? Like you say, it's a big difference from dealing with SRU, making these decisions that could affect how the fans think of you right away.
Yeah, I mean, you think of that, his kind of entry is effectively establishing whether 6 or 7 players want to be part of this moving on. And if they don't, then you've got to go out and get as much money as you possibly can for them in the transfer window. And while you're doing that, Eddie Howe and Rich, you would imagine, are going to be working to bring players in. I mean, it's massive. I mean, I don't recall potentially, even looking at the guys that, you know, the loan players going, obviously Scott Brown moving on. You know, I don't transition like this in many years, you know, and given you throw in as well the changes at, in the dugout and the executive level as well. It's just, you know, it's colossal really. And you know, yeah, football though does surprise you. I mean, you think at the moment when Rangers have obviously have won the title comfortably, and Celtic, and they're quite a settled team, and they've got a couple of players in for next season already, and Celtic have got so much work to do. You know, Rangers will be favourites, quite rightly, but football can't surprise you. I mean, Celtic were 21 points behind Rangers when Martin O'Neill came in. With a few additions, you know, you get off to a good start. Things can turn around pretty quickly. So yeah, there's an awful lot to get through before you know, before Celtic will feel as if they're kind of settled again.
Yeah, I mean, huge rebuild there, as John's saying. Johan, you were the guy beside Neil Lennon who probably had a similar kind of turnaround of players. If you remember, I think it was 2010, 2011. I think something like 10, maybe even more went out the door. Guys like, you know, Hooper and, you know, Beram Kayal and Izagiri and that came in. How difficult was that to deal with? You know, and sort of like the one summer you said to transform the full team from what was left behind?
It wasn't really that difficult. The important thing was that we obviously we had this wee cushion when Tony Mowbray had to go. We had a couple of months, you know, where we had to prove ourselves. You know, I think it was 8 league games, and then it was a cup game. So we knew about the squad going into this summer that we needed a lot of new faces, you know, to be able to play the way we wanted to. But Neil, he was very impressive in that sense. You know, he knew straight away 3-4 players that he wanted. And I think down in the championship, and obviously, I mean, later on we got Victor Wanyama, for example. You know, there's a lot of bargains out there if you're lucky. But I mean, you need to ride your luck a wee bit, but you need to get in the right players with the right character and the hunger, you know, to do well, you know. But you know, sometimes it's a gamble to bring in 10, 12 new players. But if you know that you need it, then you shouldn't worry.
Yeah. Of course, they need a couple of central defenders. You'll know that better than anybody. Anybody in mind? Anybody that you've heard that could be available or would do a job?
No, I wish I knew. No, yeah. I've watched a lot of football the last 6 months, you know, but it more depends on how Eddie Howe, if we are, you know, talking about and expecting Eddie Howe to be the manager, the way he wants his central defenders to be. You know, I'm not old-fashioned. You know, I understand that there's a room for more ball-playing centre-halves nowadays, but first and foremost, you need to be able to defend. And that's been, you know, very questionable this season. You know, the way the way Celtic has defended set pieces and crosses has been very, very poor. And that's something that needs to be corrected.
Yeah. And listen, a big one that's going out the door, Johan, we've not got your opinion on it yet, but Scott Brown, obviously leaving the club after so long. You guys made him captain. You saw the influence. What's your feelings and opinions on Scott leaving the club after so long?
No, it's a sad day in a sense, but in the end, it would happen, or he would have obviously starting coaching at Celtic. Now he's obviously started a new chapter, will start a new chapter, but he's such a true Celtic legend, and he will be sorely missed, as a character, as a person, as a player. There's no question about that, because even if this season's been disappointing for him, probably personally playing-wise, and for the team, over the years, and when we had him, he was incredible. He was such a driving force for this team and this club. So he will be sorely missed.
Yeah, well said. Okay, moving on, guys. And Neil Lennon. Now, Johan, you haven't spoken yet on Neil Lennon's departure, so this is a bit of an exclusive for the Celtic Huddle podcast. What's your thoughts on the way ultimately ended for Neil? We caught your opinion when he was going through a wee bit of a tough time, but what's your thoughts on how it eventually ended?
There was probably no other way he could end it, because it's just a result-driven business, isn't it? Especially being the manager for Celtic. So I don't think anyone was surprised in the end. It's obviously still sad, because I respect him a lot as a person and especially as a manager, and it will not take away anything that I think Neil is an excellent manager. He's an excellent manager, and he's a true Celtic legend as well, and he's done so much good. He's put so much into it, So it's a sad day, but I'm pretty sure, I'm confident that he will, come back and be successful with another team somewhere else, because it's all down to his, his motivation and his hunger for it. But him, after a couple of months, he's going to be itching to obviously take on a team again, So no, I respect him a lot, and even if he had a poor season with the team, with the club this year, he's done so much good, and he should be seen as a true Celtic legend.
Yeah, people quickly forget about the good that you do when you go through your bad spells. But you had some incredible results together, some great European nights. Listen, would you like to work with him again in some capacity? You said there he'll probably get bored sitting in the house. He'll look to take a club. I mean, would you like to reform that partnership down the line?
Let's put it this way. Obviously. We are not neither of us are chit-chat persons, So when we speak, it's serious. So seriously, obviously, I wouldn't hesitate to think about it. I wouldn't hesitate to work with Neil. No, not at all. I respect him a lot, and I think and hope that he respects me as well. The good thing, though, that's come out of this for him personally is that he has had different assistants in a sense. Obviously. The one he's worked most years with is Gary Parker, but now he had a chance. He took on the challenge to work with John and Gavin, and when the next job comes calling, he probably knows what kind of assistant he wants, because we all have different abilities, and he can probably pick the best fit for him, So that's a good thing coming out of this.
Can you tell us, did he want you back in the dugout at Celtic Park? We've already had Tommy Johnson on, who said he was close to being part of the backroom team. Was that the case for yourself?
We had a brief chat about it when he just got into the door, and he was interested then to try to bring me on. But, that fizzled out a wee bit and fizzled out, and which is fine. I've not been walking around thinking about it, and like I said, we usually don't pick up the phones and chit chat, we usually, but unfortunately for this pandemic, I'm not been able to see him, in person, So the main thing is, and he is the one who should obviously talk about it if he really, really tried to bring someone. I think he was quite happy with obviously his assistants, and they had a poor season this year, but obviously he had no problem working with John, the previous season.
Yeah, just paints a different picture. If you're actually allowed to bring in the guys who you're comfortable around, if that could have made a difference, even if things weren't going right, maybe I would have lightened the load.
I agree, though, and like I said, when it comes to the Howe thing, that I personally think a manager should be allowed to bring in, obviously, the people that he trusts 1,000%, but in this case, I don't know if Neil ever had any discussions with Peter Lowell about this.
Yeah, well, Robbie Smith here. Neil's hands were tied this season. He couldn't bring in his own backroom staff. Transfers he wanted, he never got, and players who came in were not his choice. And I suppose you can kind of see where people are coming with that. Listen, we put out earlier on to get your questions in to us on Instagram if you've anything to put to Johan, and a few have come in, big man. A few more serious than others. Somebody's Jamie McG81. Do you miss golfing on Loch Lomond Golf Course? Did you play at Loch Lomond Golf Course? Must have lost the invite.
My golf,
to me.
I was just out a couple of days ago because the courses just opened up, and it was great. It was great to get the fresh air and have a few birdies there. And now it's a Masters week as well, so I'm going to be itching to go out on the golf course.
Yeah, we're all missing our golf. Joshua 614, how does the new manager address set play defensive issues? It's a pretty, serious one, pretty hard one to do. How do you think you go about that, Johan?
No, first and foremost, it's about. I don't know, for example, what Eddie Howe does. I'm not really checked in if he does zonal or man marking or a combination of it. Nowadays most teams do the combination of zonal and man marking, but that's up to him. But they need to do better because it's been very disappointing watching all the Celtic games. The way they've conceded goals. It's not always been from straight away from set pieces, but it's been a lot of crosses, and the second ball, it always seems like the opposition were always first to the second ball, like we were not in the right places. So, but it's going to be important for him because, every time Celtic play at home, domestically, they will have most of the possession. They will have most, like 65, 70% of the possession. So where can, obviously, the opposition, punish you? Obviously, counterattacks or most likely set pieces. So they need to address it.
Yeah, it's a big point. When you see the percentage of goals that they've lost through set pieces, I think it's the number one thing that Eddie Howe has to sort out. And last one here, Ryan Murphy 7388 on Instagram. Could a new manager turn around players like Hayete, Klamala and Barkas rather than buy? So I'll put that to Johan first, but John, you can maybe gauge your opinion on that as well. Could these players still have a future with a new manager?
Yeah, I definitely think so. When it comes to these players, I'm not 100% sure. But I definitely think a new manager who comes in can give a player that is low on confidence a lot of confidence, and obviously showing that you are the type of player I want in this team, in this squad. So definitely, and I think Martin is a good proof of that. When he got in the door, and he changed Stillian's fortunes, my own fortunes, after a really difficult year with under John Barnes, or it was obviously 6 months, but then Kenny Dalglish took the rein, for the rest of the...
Felt like a year. That was that bad.
No. Don't be like that. But no, but like I say, it's important to see that obviously Martin turned around. Yes, he brought in a lot of class acts, a lot of good characters and really good players, but he got, a few of us who had been there, they were low in confidence, they haven't really played well, that we had a chance to show that we were good enough.
Yeah. John, what do you think? These players who have been, pretty much awful this season, new manager comes in, could there be a future for some of these? Barkas, Hayete?
I think it depends on the player. I think there was a period at the start of the season where he was banging in the goals and his movement looked good, and you thought, yeah, he looks as if he could cut it here. I wouldn't discard him yet. I think there is a player in him as Johan said, it would be down to a manager's confidence and obviously to get his fitness to the right level. Klimala, yeah, there's maybe somebody in there, a player in there. I'm not sure he's suited to Celtic style. He's never quite adapted to the Barkas. I'm afraid I just don't see anything with him. I mean, you need to have something to work with. I don't see anything to suggest this guy's a £5 million goalkeeper. I fully understand it's been really difficult for players coming across during lockdown with no kind of get back and forth to see their families. It's been a really difficult year for everyone. But I think that it might be pushing it to get a tune out of him.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Johan, just the final one here, because there's been a few coming down the side as well. But Scott Morrison's on Instagram here. Your best Celtic game? What do you think? Either as part of the coaching team or as a player? What's your favourite one that stands out?
No, I think the favourite one is it's a big difference when you were a player and obviously being in management. But beating Barcelona in management was just incredible, because that Barcelona team was an incredibly strong, good team. So that's probably the highlight. But when it comes to my own playing career, I played to win, and I played to win titles. So all the titles. But so it's just not really. I think though
you must have one.
Yeah,
as a player.
One is that's a bit special. It's obviously when we beat Liverpool on the run to the final in the UEFA Cup. And obviously all the Old Firm games, they're always special, because when I played, it was a fierce rivalry. We were really close knit to the two teams. There were two very strong teams, both Celtic and Rangers at the time. I think both clubs spent a lot of money during those times. So all the obviously times that you won Old Firm, they are always a highlight, because it means so much for you personally, for all the supporters, and obviously usually who is going to win the league as well.
Yeah, well, there's an important one coming up, Scottish Cup, of course, 17th April, couple of weeks' time. Before that, Celtic this weekend, Livingston at home, and just in the build-up to that, it's got to be about getting a good result, getting players back to form. One player has come in, guys, back from injury, could be an important player in that Scottish Cup game. James Forrest, Johan, you handed him his debut way back when, how long was that, 10, 11 years ago? How big a boost is that for Celtic coming up to these games against Rangers?
Massive. I've loved James, and because the way he can just go past people, he's different that way, and I think he's been missed this season. He can go both ways, both right and left, so he's really, really hard to track. He obviously he's quick as well, sharp, and I think he's a better goal scorer now than he used to be when he was younger, and obviously mentally he's in a good place now. He's going to be hungry for the end of the season. So I think it's massive. It's a great boost, and obviously hopefully he can stay injury free, until the end of the season.
Yeah, up against Barisic, you think put him in against him. James is the type of player who, like you say, could go by him. It'll be a different challenge, won't it, for Barisic playing against James than what he's faced against Celtic this year?
Yeah, most definitely, and it's something that Celtic needs, I would say, in this game. Because you have to give credit to Rangers in the way they've been very solid. They haven't conceded many goals at all, and that's probably been the foundation to their success in a certain degree. So it's going to be important for us to be able to go past them, and be able to create chances, in the final third. So I'm confident that we have the players. Then obviously on the day it's up to them, to try to obviously show it. Yeah,
and John, huge difference he'll make. Got to start against Livingston at the weekend to get another 90 minutes under his belt. But what do you think? Could that be the difference for Celtic in these remaining? Well, how many games? 5 in the league and wherever they get in the Scottish Cup, having somebody like James Forrest back on your side?
Yeah, you think over in Riga, when he went off injured that night in September, at that point in the season, we're doing fine, and it was only when he went out the team that they kind of had this terrible free-falling couple of months. Now, I'm not saying that a fully fit James Forrest would have been a difference between the season and the one we've seen today, but you cannot underestimate his loss to the team. And also, Christopher Julian's been a big loss as well. I mean, that's another thing that's been slightly overlooked. He won't play again this season. The mistakes that have been made, probably at all levels of the club this season, they have had a lot of luck as well on that front. That's two big players that have been lost. But yeah, I mean, Forrest came back in a couple of weeks ago, first start against Falkirk on Saturday, and he looked close to the player that we can be. So yeah, with these two games against Rangers coming up, obviously the Scottish Cup game is the more important of the two. But yeah, it does give Celtic a whole new dimension. No doubt about that.
Yeah, without doubt. Looking forward to seeing him back in the side. Hopefully, this time next week and Saturday he's played another 90 minutes and preparing for the Rangers game. Guys, that is us for this week. Johan, thanks very much for joining us again, big man. Wish you well. John, thank you very much. Some good points in there, guys. Like the podcast today, a lot of talking points. And thanks for everybody for getting your questions in on Instagram. Thanks for the questions who come in down the side during the show. We put as many as we could to the guys. Same again next week. And thanks for listening. Thanks to our sponsors, First Star Legends Gin, Social Recluse, and First Class Transfers. We'll see you all again next week.